Turkey, the target yet again. Dozens dead in a nightclub massacre. It seems the threat from ISIL is as great here as anywhere in the region. But why? And how can Ankara deal with the huge security challenge? This is Inside Story. Hello and welcome to the programme. Today with me, Peter Dobbie. Now, a new year is meant to mean new beginnings, but the Turkish authorities started 2017 with a manhunt, something they'd become all too used to in 2016. Turkey was targeted in dozens of attacks last year. The Islamic State of Iraq and the Levant, ISIL, said it was behind most of them and now is claiming responsibility for the first of this new year. The bells had not long finished chiming to herald in 2017 when they were replaced by the sound of gunfire. 39 people were killed at the REINA nightclub in Istanbul. Many of the victims were foreigners. The Prime Minister Binali Yildirim says Turkey won't give in to the frequent attacks on its soil.
Terör insanlığın ortak derdidir.
Terror is the common problem of humanity. No one can achieve anything by way of using terror. The aim of terror is to destroy our togetherness and spirit of brotherhood and to manipulate the atmosphere. We have been fighting fiercely against the separatists, the followers of Fethullah Gulen and ISIL, and we are aware that there will be retaliation to our efforts. But despite all that, we're not going to give up. We're not going to yield to this pressure.
Well, the mass shooting on Sunday came after more than 30 violent acts in Turkey in the past year. There were suicide bombings last January and March that targeted tourists on Istanbul's famous Istiklal Street. In June, gunmen opened fire at the Ataturk airport, killing 45 people, including themselves. 14 soldiers were killed when a suicide bomber attacked a military bus in the central city of Kayseri in the middle of December. And just a few days before that, 38 people were killed in twin bomb attacks at a football stadium in Istanbul. As we said, ISIL has said it is behind many of those attacks, but many were also allegedly committed by Kurdish separatist groups. Okay, let's bring in our guests. Joining us from Ankara, Ozgur Unluhisarcikli, Director of the Ankara Office for the German Marshall Fund of the United States. In Istanbul, Galip Dalay, Research Director at Sharq Forum, and also in Ankara, Dogu Eroglu, a reporter with the Daily Birgun newspaper. Welcome to you all. Do, if I can come to you first, what's your reading of this claim of responsibility from ISIL?
We know that IS claims responsibility for actions that are actually perpetrated by some sympathizers. We call those events as IS-inspired attacks. And 2 months ago, in November, there has been an attack in Diyarbakir. And also IS claimed responsibility for that attack too. But later then, another group claimed responsibility, and it occurred that that other group called TAK, was the perpetrator of that action. So, in short, at this moment, we only know that IS claims responsibility for it. We don't know, we are not sure it is either an IS-inspired action or perpetrated by the group itself or its cell networks that are active in Turkey.
Galip Dalay, do you agree with that analysis? I mean, are we talking here about somebody who was self-inspired, perhaps, or are we talking about somebody who was trained and directed by ISIL?
Well, it is very much hard to ascertain whether it was an inspired attack or whether it was directly perpetrated by IS. But what is clear from the nature of the attack, from the professionality of the person involved, because a single person right now, one thing that has been ascertained that it was a single individual entering the club and staying there for 7 minutes, killing 39 and wounding 65, and then changing her clothes and escaping from him without being captured, shows how professional it is. So in any way, it seems to be like, someone is actually much more organically linked than being a sympathizer and someone who has a military training as well too. But also the fact that the IS has claimed responsibility is also important. Yes, previously it also claimed responsibility for an attack that occurred in Diyarbakir, which was later contested by the TAK, which is a splinter group from the PKK. But the fact that this time that it claimed shows also how much the IS actually going from previously sporadically targeting Turkey to systematically targeting Turkey, and primarily targeting either the ethno-sectarian fault line or ideological or lifestyle fault lines or the economic lifelines as it has previously done. And this symbolism of this attack was very much related to this lifestyle. I mean, the IS wanted to actually start some kind of the lifestyle debate in Turkey as a result of this attack, widen the divide between the secularists and the Islamists. This is a clearly well-planned and strategically minded attack.
Ozgur, in your opinion, is there a sense perhaps in which this claim of responsibility, it doesn't really matter whether it's accurate or not, whether it's real or not, because what ISIL wants to do in Turkey is sow confusion and violence, and in that regard this latest attack has been a success for them?
Well, first of all, ISIL likes creating ambiguity about who conducted certain terrorist attacks. Not only do they claim attacks that they have not conducted, but they also refrain from claiming attacks that obviously they have conducted. So they do create this ambiguity, and I think we're facing such a situation now. But I would argue that whether ISIL conducted this attack or not, this attack was perfectly in line with ISIL's general strategy in Turkey. Because as Galip has mentioned, ISIL aims to drive a wedge between different parts, different segments of Turkish society, and they want to capitalize on the already existing polarization within Turkish society. And the choice of the location and the timing by the attackers were very symbolic, because in Turkey there was already a debate about whether New Year can be celebrated in a Muslim society or not. And this was a polarizing debate, and it already created an environment in which a terrorist organization would have the confidence that they would have the perception that they would gain more out of such a terrorist attack. Did they succeed? Well, time will prove it. The final reaction of the Turkish society will determine it. But so far, they have already managed to widen the gap in the Turkish society.
Widening the gap in Turkish society, Galip Dalay, coming back to you, despite what Mr. Erdogan has done in the past 12 months, but particularly maybe referring back to how he reacted to the failed military coup on July the 12th, what else can he do now to make the country more secure?
I mean, regarding the security challenges, I guess that is the question. Well, I think, two things is clear. One of them is that Turkey is in a quite hard place. It is neighboring a civil war in Syria, a failed state in Iraq, the presence of millions of people that has fled these countries to find a safe haven, and also the terrorist activities of different groups, from Daesh to the PKK and to the other groups. So Turkey does face a very significant, a very challenging context. But on the other hand, the fact that Turkey almost every month has a quite major attack shows that there is a security deficit, and then there is a security lapse within the system. So what can be done? Because it is very hard to determine from outside what can be done. But I think one of the crucial factors will be much more sophisticated the intelligence gathering, and this intelligence gathering will not be only achieved by Turkey alone. This requires two dimensions. One of them, the intelligence gathering within the Turkey, but given the nature of the transnational and transborder nature of the terrorist threat that Turkey is facing, the security challenge that Turkey is facing, it is very much also crucial that this intelligence sharing and the intelligence cooperation takes place between Turkey and the countries concerned. This is one of the crucial ways. And the second aspect will be, once this intelligence cooperation is achieved, then a much more forceful the law enforcement operation needs to take place. But again, clearly there is a security deficit. the fact that this attack is so frequently occurring. But at the same time, as I just said, that Turkey is the geographic location of Turkey makes it quite vulnerable to such attacks as well too. Even a country like France, which is quite far away from what is happening in the Middle East, relatively could not achieve the complete security.
Dogu Eroglu in Ankara, your sources at the highest level, is that what they're telling you? Because it occurs to me there's something of a contradiction here. We're being told now that they need to up their game when it comes to intelligence gathering, and yet already we know this because this is an established fact. Your country has a very modern, very up-to-date military, so there seems to be something of a disconnect there.
I think when it comes to gathering information and intelligence about the upcoming attacks, I believe that Turkish security apparatus is trying its best to prevent such actions. But if you ask to me what was the failure, what was the reason that we face such calamities today, was the errors done through the Syria civil war. Because from my personal experience, I saw recruitment hotspots in Ankara, in Adıyaman, in Antep, in Izmir, in Istanbul, many of Turkey's urban places, and police and security apparatuses had already known about those recruitment efforts and other functions that those cell networks provide for the IS established in Syria and Iraq. But however, they decided to turn a blind eye for those activities for a long time. Now, after many of those men recruited on those recruitment hotspots went to the war and gained experience, either in combat, either in making IEDs, improvised explosive devices, either in stealth, they came back to Turkey, most of them. And Turkey didn't have any returnee policies, didn't know how to prosecute those returnees, didn't know how to de-radicalize those people. So now we're facing probably thousands of ex-jihadis at large in Turkey, facing no persecution at all, and having the same old factors that pushed them into Syria at their home places. So nothing has changed for them, except probably some gains, some material gains, some money from the jihad, but everything else remains the same. So when I look at the event in REINA, I don't really get surprised by seeing some assailant who is very much experienced in combat. This is not only my opinion, but also some former military officers in Turkey share this view. So this person, this assailant, can be easily an ex-jihadi who got radicalized in Turkey.
Well, there's been a rise in violence across Turkey in the past year, especially as well in the southeast. That's where Turkish soldiers are fighting Kurdish separatist groups who want more autonomy for ethnic Kurds. The conflict dates back decades. A peace plan was announced in early 2015, but fighting flared up again just a few months later. The Kurdistan Workers' Party, or PKK, is the best-known Kurdish group. Turkey considers it a terrorist organization. Galip, Dalay, the PKK is considered a terrorist organization as far as Mr. Erdogan is concerned, and indeed as far as many other governments are concerned. But there are 15 million Kurds inside Turkey, but Erdogan and his prime minister and his military always keen to make the point, look, we're going after the PKK, we're not going after Kurds.
Well, I mean, the reason for this is because the Turkey's AK Party, which is the President Erdogan's own party, almost gets as much as the votes from the pro-Kurdish party from the Kurds as the pro-Kurdish HDP does. So in this regard, he has a point when he talks about the Kurds and the PKK in a different context, because in the end, PKK represent a different strata within the larger Kurdish movement as well too. And also when you look at the regional Kurdish politics, the PKK and the pro-Kurd and the Barzani, which is the Kurdistan Democratic part of the Iraq, which is actually the most nationalist and the one that is striving for the independence, is represented two different spectrum of the Kurdish political movement. Whereas Turkey enjoys a very close and cordial relations with the Barzani, it is it has a very conflictual form of relation with the PKK. So in this regard, but nevertheless, we also know that the Kurdish issue cannot be settled, or the political side of the Kurdish issue cannot be settled through just the arms alone. And that was the reason actually previously there was a Kurdish opening. There was actually many attempts for a Kurdish opening, but unfortunately the Syria conundrum, the crisis in Syria, was both previously as a facilitator for the embarking on a Kurdish opening, but also it was a factor that led to the termination of the Kurdish movement. And unless until and unless we have a status quo in Syria, it is very unlikely once again the state and the PKK or the state and the pro-Kurdish HDP will go for the talks to find a political settlement to the Kurdish issue. So for the time being, unfortunately in Syria, as right now the Turkish army is there, like a couple thousands of the Turkish soldier is in Syria, and this is like the operational goal of this attack. This operation is the ISIS, but the strategic goal is the YPG, the PKK affiliated YPG. And as long as this animosity and this friction remains between the PKK and the Turkish army and the YPG and the Turkish army, it is unlikely that we're going to witness to the emergence of any political dialogue between Turkey and the PKK anytime soon.
Ozgur, how good do you think Mr. Erdogan is at actually changing his mind or changing the manifestation of his policies here? Because if we go back to the beginning of the Arab Spring, they had this idea, this concept of zero problems. They basically said to every country around Turkey, look, you've got the Arab Spring kicking off, we will have zero problems with you, whatever country they were addressing. And then a year or two in, the Muslim Brotherhood were kicked out in Egypt, and that relationship went through the floor.
Well, obviously Turkey has changed the course of its foreign policy twice over the course of the last decade. And of course the most recent one was convergence with Russia when it comes to the Syria policy. So there is no reason why Turkey cannot change its policy as the conditions in the neighborhood are changing.
Dogu Eroglu, if this convergence with Russia, and we've seen it really change in the past 12 months. I mean, 12 months ago we saw Turkish fighter aircraft, one Turkish fighter aircraft taking a Russian fighter aircraft out of the sky. Fast forward, 12 months, that relationship is getting closer. So there's some realpolitik going on there. But in terms of security inside Turkey, does that axis of, I would suggest, trust between Ankara and Moscow make the country safer?
We have to go back to 2 weeks ago, 2 weeks before now. The Russian ambassador to Ankara, Carlo, was assassinated by a police officer in Ankara. And both countries, at least President Erdogan and Putin, got sort of a shared view at the end that the assailant got involved in Gülen's organization. However, he actually showed some signs of self-radicalization. If it wasn't the case, if the both countries had gone with radicalization story, or at least waited for a proper prosecution, proper investigation, I would say that this rapprochement between Russia and Turkey would mean a safer environment for Turkey. But for now, Turkey is still not getting the core of the issue, not pursuing the important persons of local radicalization hotspots, not going after the perpetrators of, for example, October the 10th, for a long time at least. Now we see that each and every one of those cell networks has some capability of assault and making IEDs. So I don't really feel safe for Turkey's future.
Galip, Dalay, let's just stay with that idea of radicalization for a second. In people who choose to live a secular lifestyle in Turkey, they would say they are being at least marginalized. If Mr. Erdogan and his government loosen the chains a little bit on the clampdown after the military coup, would that work against the chances of people becoming radicalized?
Well, let me put this question in a larger context. I mean, I don't know, the colleague also has referred to the seeing these ISIS recruitment places within the Turkey. I don't know whether he has informed the law enforcement, and if he did, what was the answer? First and foremost, this radicalization at some level is right now actually, unfortunately, a global phenomena. It's not just like a Turkey specific. You have a country like which has the longest history of the secularism in the Arab world, a country like Tunisia, sending the most number of the ISIS member, even more than the conservative countries like Saudi Arabia, like the Gulf, sending more ISIS fighters to Syria and Iraq than any other Arabic countries. And a place like France and Belgium is sending as much as almost like as much ISIS members as some of the Muslim countries in the Middle East. So this issue of radicalization is quite a political one, and it's very much related to what is happening in the region. And unless and until the dust of the region settles, I don't think that we are going to see anytime soon some kind of de-radicalization within the regional landscape, and no country in the region is immune from this trend. And second, on Turkey's political landscape, definitely the change of the political discourse and definitely the change of the political parlance in country can contribute into the depolarization of the society along this secularist versus the Islamist or the conservative versus the secularist line very much, because in the end, I think the nature of the polarization in Turkey is very much political, and both the governing and the opposition side have a very comfortable area with this polarization. And if the political elites, starting from the president to the other political elites, if they change the discourse and the parlance, that definitely will help for the depolarization.
Last couple of points very quickly, because we are coming towards the end of the programme. Ozgur, there are obviously no quick comparisons here. Galip was making that point loud and clear there. Predict for us how you think 2017 will play out.
Well, as far as we can see, 2017 will not be any better than 2016. And actually, this terrorist attack was just an indicator of what it will look like. I would also like to touch base upon the issue of radicalization, because I believe that ethnic and religious-based radicalization in Turkey are the two main security threats for Turkey, and polarization is a threat multiplier. And I'm not sure that the Turkish government, the signs coming from the Turkish government doesn't make me think that the government fully grasps how important and how dangerous this radicalization is. The Turkish state knows how to cope with Kurdish radicalization, for example, and has been taking measures for a very long time. And the Turkish society and the Turkish security forces are very sensitive towards this kind of radicalization. But neither the Turkish society nor the Turkish security forces have the same sort of sensitivity when it comes to religious-based radicalization. And it is still possible in the Turkish society to argue the legitimacy of religious extremism. You can see people openly arguing on social media on behalf of religious extremism, while the same would not be possible for ethnic extremism. So I believe that we have a long way to go for countering these threats. There is no magic wand. There is no quick fix. Whatever measures the Turkish government takes, we will see such attacks in the short run. But if we take the necessary measures today, we can prevent such attacks in the medium run. And about a previous question you have asked, can Turkey's cooperation
Gentlemen,
with Russia
I'm going to stop you there, for which I apologise. We are out of time and all our satellites are about to crash out the sky. But thank you so much for talking to us. Well, thanks to all our guests here on Inside Story, Ozgur, Unluhisarcikli, Galip, Dalay and Dogu Eroglu. And thank you to you, too, for watching. You can see the programme again anytime via the website, aljazeera.com. And for further discussions, do go to our Facebook page. That's facebook.com/AJ Inside Story. You can also join the conversation on Twitter @AJ Inside Story. From me, Peter Dobbie, and the team here in Doha, thanks for watching. We'll do it all again at the same time tomorrow.